Hello, federal viewers. Welcome to another episode of Worldly Wise, where we look at trending global issues. India last month vacated from its only overseas military airbase, Ayni airbase, from Tajikistan, Central Asia. The Indian government has said that it had to vacate because the lease agreement had expired. Now, this exit has triggered a lot of criticism and questions, particularly because the location where this airbase is situated is strategically valuable. Now, to understand whether India exited voluntarily or is there more to the story, and to know the significance of Indian government's move, we've got our consulting editor, Mr. K.S. Dakshina, who closely tracks international developments. So, welcome to the show. My first question to you is, what is the significance of this airbase? And firstly, how did India actually set up this airbase?
The Ayni airbase is was India's only full-fledged airbase, because India does not have bases elsewhere. It has kind of ad hoc bases, but not as
Right.
full-fledged as the one in the Ayni airbase in Tajikistan. And Tajikistan itself is located to the west of Pakistan and to the north of Afghanistan. And it's strategically close to China's Xinjiang province. So,
Right.
and the other crucial thing about Tajikistan is that Russia itself has a huge base in Tajikistan, and it is considered strategically important for the Moscow-driven Collective Security Treaty Organization. So what happened is, after the 9/11 attacks and the world's, the equations, political equations changed, India got, its base there, and in the fluid situation that existed after the 9/11 attacks, it was felt even by the big powers like the US and even Russia did not really have a issue with India having its base there. So, and over time, India grew it into a full-fledged airbase. Especially, it got a massive fillip during the time of the Vajpayee government.
Right. Okay.
And so what is its significance? Its significance is that it's just 20 kilometers from the Wakhan corridor that separates
Okay.
Tajikistan and Pakistan. And it's some 600 kilometers from Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. So the point here is that by itself makes it very crucial as far as its location is concerned. And the other thing is that knowing its strategic location, India developed it, India built a huge runway, nearly 3.2 kilometers long. And at various times, it had its Sukhoi 30 fighter aircraft stationed there. And
Okay.
there were about 200 Air Force personnel also there when it was fully operational. So that is the significance. And in fact, during the turbulent period of the 1990s in Afghanistan, there was an attempt on the life of the Northern Alliance just 2 days before the 9/11 attacks. And the leader, Ahmad Shah Massoud, was actually brought to a hospital at the Ayni Air Base run by India, and he was treated there. But unfortunately, it didn't work, and he actually died. And much later, and more recently, in 2021, when the Taliban returned to power in Afghanistan, India used the Ayni Air Base to rescue its citizens who were stranded in Afghanistan. So the Ayni Air Base is very interestingly located, and something that any of the big powers would have loved to have a base there, and they also have it because Tajikistan is also a crucially located region.
Right. It's very interesting to look back the history to understand the significance of the location, and there are a lot of reports which say almost $70 million to $100 million were spent to actually develop the airbase. In that case, why is Tajikistan not allowing India to actually operate, out of this airbase? What is the reason?
So, this is the crucial thing. Now, on the face of it, there was no way that India would have wanted to vacate
Right.
the airbase on its own. At the same time, why did it do that? So it obviously means that the Tajik government gave notice to India saying that they didn't want to renew the lease. Now, why would that have happened? It's also linked in some ways to the overall power politics around the world. If you take the period, say from about 2000 till 2021, India moved very close to the US, and Russia, which was hoping that India would have a kind of an equidistance between the US and Russia, realized that India was very much with the US. And also, if you recollect, there was a close bonhomie between uh, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the first term of Donald Trump. So
Right.
it really, Russia and Putin realized that India was not going to be as friendly as earlier. Similarly, as far as China was concerned, China was also getting closer to Russia, and China and India had issues. And then, if you remember, in 2020, you had the Galwan attack, and the relationship between China and uh, India. I mean, it really went down the hill. So now, how did it have an impact on this airbase and Tajikistan? It's that because Tajikistan, it's the poorest country in the region. It depends entirely on Russia for its
Correct.
security, and it depends on China for its economic development and survival. So it is very likely that both Russia and China put pressure on the Tajik government to let India go, because they were
Right.
no longer sure that India would be part of this, alliance between Russia and China. So it most likely is a consequence of big power politics.
Right. So it seems like it's a huge setback, a limitation for India's foreign policy. The Congress is also slamming the government, calling it a huge setback for India's foreign policy. How much of a limitation is it for India's foreign policy?
See, if you take India's foreign policy, it's really caught amongst these three, its equations amongst the three big powers, that is China, Russia, and the US. So its foreign policy. It's always constantly trying to please all the three, but it is not possible, and especially if you look at the current situation. If you take, for example, Trump asking India to withdraw, to stop its oil imports from Russia, and
Exactly.
India,
Right.
like what Trump said, actually, India has drastically reduced its imports, and it will further reduce, and probably it might even stop totally at some point in the near future. So it basically means, so it's definitely going to hurt Russia, and it's also going to directly affect India-Russia relationship. Now, the point here is, you also have Russia and China,
Right.
which have got close to each other, and Russia has now been dependent more on China because of the Ukraine, of its war with Ukraine, and it's leaning heavily on China. So
Right.
and between China and India, again, there is a limitation because China is closer to Pakistan than with India. So if you see on
Right.
all fronts, India is stymied. It does not have a free, it is unable to act freely. It is
Right.
constantly trying to catch up, or trying to sort out things rather than lead or initiate any policy on its own. That is the reason why, you can even say it's a kind of a paralysis of its foreign policy. And you see
Right.
that in what has happened in the Ayni airbase and India's withdrawal.
Interesting. Perhaps that's why India is trying to, sort of rebuild its contact with Taliban government as well. It wants to desperately have, a voice in Central Asia. But now, from a, South Asia context, what does India's exit from this airbase signify?
Basically, it's a setback, number one. Number
Right.
two, India having the Aini airbase in Tajikistan to the west of Pakistan was Though whether it would be used against Pakistan or not is a different issue. But on paper, theoretically, India could use it against Pakistan from a different from its western front. What it would have done is it would have put an extreme strain on Pakistan. So, for
Right.
instance, if you take this Operation Sindoor, India by then had almost totally, by the time it happened earlier this year in May, India was almost out of the Ayni airbase, so it probably could not use it. But if India had remained there and it was fully operational, and if India had used that, to target Pakistan from the Western Front, it would have really placed India at an advantage strategically and militarily, and it would have, to that extent, made it difficult for Pakistan. So, if you look at it purely from an India-Pakistan perspective, yes, moving out of the Aini airbase is a big relief for Pakistan, and at the same time, it also shows that India is not able to make much headway as far as its relationship with its neighbors are concerned. Okay, the Aini airbase has been there since for the last 20-25 years, but India itself hasn't expanded its attempt to have more such bases. For instance, if you take, it had some kind of a relationship with the Maldives, but then it is constantly going back and forth. Right now, things are a little better, but then when the government changes, it affects India's position there and its involvement in with the Maldivian military. So it basically means that nothing is set, and there is nothing that India itself can dictate, even within the region, even in South Asia. And this again shows that there is something that needs to be worked out in in India's foreign policy. Of course, it's a completely open issue, but as of now, well, the limitations exist, and I think one has to live with it.
Thank you. So thank you so much. It's been a very insightful conversation. Viewers, for Moses analysis, keep watching The Federal.